It's great to see so many people here today who are interested in not just DJI, but in the whole issue of drones and how to keep the skies safe in the drone era. We have a lot of interesting announcements for you here today. We think you're going to be excited about what you hear. Let me introduce a man who needs no introduction, Brendan Schulman, who, for those of you who don't know, is one of the leading voices in the drone world. We're very lucky to have him on board as not just a leading lawyer and thinker about how drones can be successfully integrated into the airspace, but he's also a pretty ace pilot. And if you're lucky, you've seen his FPV videos, and you know that you are dealing with someone here who understands drones from all perspectives. So we're excited to see what we're going to be talking about here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. That was entirely off script. You know the FAA is here to watch my videos. But really, thank you all for joining us today. We really do have a lot of interesting ideas to share with you. But first, I want to tell you a story that we recently discovered about how having access to cutting-edge drone safety technology has already had a real impact on today's operations. This is Dusty Burge. He makes a living using drones to inspect high-tension power lines and electrical substations in Nebraska. His company is UAV Recon, and they do important work. It became even more important 2 months ago. I don't know if you remember the floods in Nebraska. Nebraska was devastated by the worst floods in that state's entire history. Roads and bridges were washed away. Cities and farms and even an Air Force base were underwater. Utilities needed to know the condition of their poles and substations so they could start restoring power. But their trucks couldn't drive there. However, Dusty could fly there. It's a great example of how a drone can do vital work faster, easier, and safer than the traditional way. But for Dusty, it presented safety challenges, ones he'd never experienced before, because the skies over Nebraska were buzzing with other aircraft, low-flying airplanes and helicopters doing everything from search and rescue missions to insurance surveys to emergency restoration work. Most of you here today can imagine the risks in this situation. Deconflicting air traffic is a rigorous task on the best of days. But outside of Columbus, Nebraska, aircraft were flying unpredictable routes at low altitudes. Dusty could hear buzzing noises, aircraft noises all around on the horizon. But even with a visual observer spotting for him, this situation pushed the limits of what See and Avoid could help prevent. Now, fortunately, Dusty was flying a DJI drone equipped with our most advanced safety technology, which we install in our top-of-the-line professional drones. We call that AirSense. It receives ADS-B signals from helicopters and airplanes, carrying their telemetry information. And when our flight control app thinks there's a risk of one of those other aircraft might be too close to the drone, it warns the drone pilot to get out of the way fast. Dusty told us, and here I'm quoting something he sent to us, "I took off and heard a buzz, and before I could even look up, I saw it on my screen." So then he clicked the icon, saw exactly where it was, and knew he could fly safely. Over and over as he flew his vital missions for days on end, Dusty realized the AirSense system was giving him a new level of safety, more than the old ways could have provided. And he told us, for keeping track of air traffic, this screen does a better job than a visual observer could do. Now, we love hearing these stories, not just because they show that what we develop in the lab by our engineers can make life better for people, but also because they show there's always room to come up with new ways to make a safe technology even safer. Now, I want to establish something right now. Drones are a safe technology. There are millions of small civilian drones around the world. They fly everywhere, and most of the time, no one even notices. They've never killed anyone. You wouldn't know it from some of the headlines out there, but that's true. Why is that? Well, most drone pilots really do try to fly safely, and the laws and regulations about drone flight are generally quite conservative, erring on the side of extra separation and stronger restrictions. And DJI has put an awful lot of time and effort and resources into building safety systems into our drones. It's no exaggeration to say that DJI leads the industry in safety. We were the first drone company to set up GPS-based geofencing to help drone pilots steer clear of airports and other sensitive locations. Now, we upgraded that feature twice in the past 4 years to add more sensitive locations, such as prisons and nuclear power plants, as well as FAA temporary flight restrictions. And most recently, in collaboration with some of you in the traditional aviation community, we changed the shape of the geofencing from circles to what we call bow tie shapes to better reflect the risk factors at airport runways. We pioneered automatic altitude limits to help prevent drones from straying into the path of traditional aircraft. We invented return-to-home systems that bring drones back to their takeoff point if they lose contact with the controller or if they're running low on power. We also created obstacle sensing technologies to help our drones automatically steer clear of nearby obstructions, including buildings, vehicles, trees, and people. And we deployed a mandatory knowledge quiz that requires new drone pilots to correctly answer some basic questions about drone safety before they start flying. We already have a functioning remote ID system called Aeroscope. It can identify and track our drones in the air and provides security and accountability for the vast majority of drones in use today. And police and airport officials can look at that Aeroscope system and see not only where a drone is, but also where the pilot is standing, so they can engage that person if necessary. And our partners who are using that technology, they've reported great results at airports, sensitive facilities, VIP events, large public gatherings. Aeroscope is making a difference. It really is. I actually wish I could tell you some of those stories. They are great, but understandably, they're quite sensitive. Now, these features are all important individually. Taken together, they're evidence of how seriously DJI takes safety. We didn't do any of this in response to government requirements. We invented it ourselves at no small cost because it's the right thing to do. We reviewed our records and counted the hours our engineering teams tracked for their work on just 3 of these safety features since 2017: geofencing, Aeroscope, and AirSense ADS-B. 30,000 hours. Our engineers have spent at least 30,000 hours working to develop these safety features. To put that in perspective, it's sort of a hard number to think about. If you had a team of 5 engineers, they would have to spend nearly 3 years employed full-time to generate that safety work. Safety is actually just one example of DJI's industry leadership. We're also setting new standards in data security. And so we're pleased to see this week the DHS guidance to mitigate data security risk for drone technology used in critical applications, because it validates all of the data security measures we've developed in partnership with the US government and have built into our products. DHS's standards are DJI's standards. The security of our products has actually been independently verified by the US government and US businesses. DJI has led the drone industry in giving our customers access to best-in-class security features and the tools to give them complete control over how their data is collected, stored, and transmitted. We've gone to great lengths to work with government and enterprise customers, especially those in critical infrastructure sectors, to deliver on that promise, including some of you I see here today, such as Measure and Precision Hawk, who work frequently on infrastructure and government projects. So we're proud to say that DJI products meet or exceed the functionality needed to comply with the best practices outlined by the Department of Homeland Security in its new guidance this week. That fact is validated by the people who rely on our products every day. But really, we're here to talk to you about aviation safety. That's why you're here today. We're really proud, not just of the data security efforts, but also those safety efforts. However, when you look at news stories about drones spotted near airports, or you hear that reports of drone sightings are increasing, you never know about any of the truly effective safety technology that's deployed every day. That really worries us. We're actually very worried. At DJI, we love these great stories about drones doing good in the world, from recovering from disasters to building businesses to saving lives. But the bad stories seem to get the most traction. And it's those bad stories that get the attention of the public, and then the elected officials who listen to the public, and the regulators who listen to the elected officials. So even while drones are getting safer, a public perception that they're getting more dangerous has real consequences for us all. It could lead to more strict laws and regulations addressing perceived problems instead of actual risks that end up robbing society of the benefits that drones can bring. If people, businesses, and researchers and first responders have a harder time flying, they'll be less likely to do good things using drones. I spend a lot of my time meeting with policy leaders, not just here, but around the world, on behalf of DJI, and I have to tell you, we are at risk. We're really at risk of losing much of the benefit of drones if we do not together directly and comprehensively address the safety and security challenges that we're facing. Within DJI, we continue to address these concerns with technological innovation like our new geofencing solution. But just like with drone technology itself, we never accept that we've done enough to improve safety. We're relentless. And so a few months ago, as we finished rolling out that third generation of geofencing, we realized we had done all the obvious things that we could think of. We asked ourselves, well, what more could we do? What can we do next? So we went looking for data to inform the answer to those questions, and we quickly ran into a problem. The FAA's drone sighting database, unfortunately, is not helpful. It has thousands of raw reports, but none of them are vetted or standardized. Plenty of them describe perfectly legal drone flights, or things that probably weren't even drones. 3 different organizations have studied the FAA database and said it doesn't provide any helpful information. We also look to Europe. So EASA has its own database, and it's even less helpful. The data isn't public, so we can't independently evaluate it. But EASA itself cautions that some of their drone sightings, especially the ones at higher altitudes, probably aren't drones. So we looked at the UK Air Prox Board data, because their reports actually do have a reputation for rigorous investigation. But their drone sightings still depend on the word of an airplane or helicopter pilot, even if those sightings are wildly implausible. And for all the problems with these official data sources, trying to obtain drone safety data from news stories is even worse. There are lots of wild claims in newspapers and on TV about drone incidents that probably never involved a drone. We just saw headlines in the UK about what they called a shocking near miss. A jet was flying at 14,000 feet. A member of the cabin crew claims to have looked out the window and spotted 2 drones flying in formation, passing by just 90 feet from the airplane. Now, some of you in the room are seasoned aviation experts, and some of you aren't. But I think any of you can think about that scenario for a minute and realize how ludicrous it is. We'd hope reporters would take a more critical look at some of these reports, but sometimes the sensational headlines are just irresistible. Even drone collisions that show up in the media are not collisions. We counted 6 reported drone collisions with airplanes that turned out to be caused by birds or bats or something else. Last year, for example, a New Zealand broadcaster crashed a small plane after his windshield shattered in flight. He was all over the national media, and also internationally, saying it must have been a drone. And his conclusion was backed up by a certified flight instructor on the ground, someone who wasn't there in the air, who said, yes, this must have been a drone. There are all sorts of bloody, dramatic pictures. Well, a year later, the scientists came back with the answer. The windshield had a critical structural weakness, and it never hit anything. So this situation is frustrating in several ways. First, because we know intuitively that not every reported drone is really a drone. Even the sharpest-eyed pilot could have trouble identifying something in a split second. And if it happens when the headlines are all about drones instead of birds, it can't but have an effect on us all. It's also frustrating that reports of mythical drone sightings and even mythical collisions end up feeding media stories that demonize our industry. And most frustrating of all, it focuses attention on trying to solve problems that aren't real, instead of trying to identify the most important risk factors for drones and then solving those. So that's what we tried to do. As we looked deeper into the data, we finally saw a trend that seemed meaningful. There are no proven collisions between a drone and an airplane anywhere in the world, but there have been 2 actual proven collisions of DJI drones with helicopters at low altitudes. And you probably know about these. They obviously were in the news as well. The first was in New York City. A pilot flew his drone, a Phantom 4, in a temporary flight restriction far beyond his line of sight at dusk without understanding the flight regulations or risks. An Army Black Hawk helicopter hit it, fortunately causing only minor damage to the rotor blade and no injuries. We assisted NTSB in this investigation, so we were able to learn as much as we could from the incident, try to understand how did this happen, what might we do to help prevent it next time. The second helicopter collision was in Israel. Less news attention, maybe you haven't seen this one. A helicopter pilot and a drone pilot were each flying professional jobs, operating in compliance with the rules, and they still collided. Neither one saw the other. Now, fortunately, again, no one was hurt. The helicopter landed safely. This was just an accident, but the goal of aviation safety is to reduce and eliminate the factors that can cause accidents. We also came across 2 troubling videos of operators apparently using our drones that inadvertently came dangerously close to helicopter traffic. Maybe you've seen them. This is the first one in Hollywood, Florida. Video from on board the drone. And the second one near Niagara Falls. Now, the operator of this drone seemed especially remorseful in his own comments on social media on this incident. He said he wasn't aware of the helicopter. The lesson from all these incidents, the collisions and these true near misses, is that drone pilots flying at low altitudes need enhanced awareness of other air traffic. Helicopters and small planes fly at low altitudes away from airports, and they can land anywhere. But our long-standing safety features in consumer drones, like geofencing and altitude limitations, aren't enough to address those risks. We thought about this, and we realized we had the power to do something. Remember that AirSense system that helped Dusty Burge stay safe? Our professional drones, like the M200 and Mavic 2 Enterprise series, are already able to pick up those ADS-B signals. But there are many, many more consumer-level drones than professional drones, perhaps 10 times as many. And the people who buy and fly those consumer drones could really benefit from AirSense, especially after January 1st, 2020, when the FAA will require effectively all airplanes and helicopters flying in controlled airspace to broadcast an ADS-B signal. So once we looked at it that way, we realized what we had to do. And today we're committing to do it. So starting January 1st, 2020, DJI will install AirSense ADS-B receivers in every new drone model we release above 250 grams. This is an extraordinary step forward for drone safety. We're taking professional-grade aviation technology that helps pilots avoid collisions. We're putting it in drones that you can buy off the shelf at a big box store or online. And while we never disclose our sales figures, it's clear that putting AirSense in new DJI consumer drones will immediately become one of the biggest single deployments of ADS-B receiving technology in the world. This has never been done before. And frankly, we're not completely certain how we're going to do it. Putting an ADS-B receiver in a larger professional drone is one thing. Squeezing it into a smaller, sleeker package is much harder. So we're actually setting for ourselves an aggressive schedule that requires us to modify product designs that are already heading towards production for next year. But we're going to do that. Adding ADS-B receivers to small consumer drones also costs money. It draws power, it adds weight, but we think it's worth it. Now that we know what we know about this pattern of collisions and near misses, we can't not do it. So starting next year, everyone who buys a new model DJI drone above 250 grams will be constantly made aware of helicopters and airplanes in the area. They'll be automatically alerted when that traffic is approaching the location of the drone. They may even get that alert before they can even see or hear that other traffic. Here's a video we made to explain this new commitment. The future of aviation involves drones working collaboratively with traditional aircraft. For years, DJI has been on the leading edge of innovation, especially when it comes to safety. From automatic return to home, to altitude limits, to obstacle avoidance, to our pioneering of geofencing. Now we're taking the next step, giving almost all drone pilots the ability to detect airplanes and helicopters that are flying nearby. We call that DJI AirSense. AirSense uses a special signal called ADS-B that airplanes and helicopters transmit to show their location. When AirSense receives an ADS-B signal, the DJI mobile app alerts the pilot with enough time to take action. ADS-B was designed for airplanes and helicopters, but already there are more drones in the sky than either of them.
Drones are going to play a very significant role in the continued evolution of aviation. And we, as an industry, all need to figure out how we adapt to that.
Well, safety is the #1 fundamental aspect of aviation. DJI has done a really good job of being very inclusive and collaborating with the manned aviation community.
The FAA is requiring traditional aircraft to install ADS-B transmitters by the year 2020. There's no mandate for drones to have ADS-B receivers, but DJI wants to be a good partner in the use of airspace. That's why we're building AirSense into almost all of our drones.
I think AirSense is going to be very beneficial to pilots like me that use drones responsibly. It'll give more situational awareness and visibility to the drone user that otherwise they might not have.
AirSense is already installed in DJI's newest systems like the Matrice 200 series and the Mavic 2 Enterprise. And now DJI is committing to installing AirSense in all the drones it makes over 250 grams.
DJI's decision to equip the majority of its drones with ADS-B is a very positive development and an important safety improvement in the use of drones in the national airspace system.
Safety really is the most important thing. So when we design and implement our safety features, we always have as the top priority contributing to the safety of the airspace that we share. So as you can see, we're not alone in recognizing the magnitude of what we're doing here. DJI will set the standard once again for what a safe drone does. But we also believe DJI cannot act alone in this. Although we're the leader in drone safety, and we've implemented these features years ahead of regulation and other manufacturers, we all need to work on safety together. So that's why today we are releasing a white paper called Elevating Safety. It outlines our vision for ensuring the skies stay safe in the drone era. Please make sure you get a copy on your way out of the event today. They'll be downstairs at the entrance to the facility. The paper describes 10 steps that must happen in order to assure drone safety and protect drone innovation. The first of those 10 points is our ADS-B commitment, but DJI is actually doing 2 more things to enhance safety. We're developing a way to automatically warn our users when they fly at extended distances from where they're standing. This is to reinforce and remind people of the visual line of sight requirements. We think this would help in scenarios like that New York collision, and perhaps others where drone pilots simply don't realize that they're losing the ability to watch for obstacles and other air traffic near their drone. There's actually no simple standard for how far is too far, so we're developing an algorithm that takes into account distance, angle, altitude, and then we'll warn the pilot through the flight control app. We're also formalizing and expanding an internal safety standards group to develop performance and maintenance standards for our drones. This will provide valuable information to customers and regulators about how to ensure our drones are performing properly, which is vital for drones to be used in complex operations especially. That's our commitment, but we also believe that the others in the industry must step up and do their share, including these points from the report. Aviation groups must develop standards for reporting drone incidents. They need to weed out reports that are clearly spurious and help the industry focus on reports that can spot problems and illuminate trends. And other drone manufacturers have a responsibility too. Their customers deserve top-notch safety technology just like ours. Now, some manufacturers don't believe in geofencing or other restrictions because it limits the ability of pilots to make their own decisions. And that is an interesting philosophical argument. I've been building and flying drones myself for years, and I understand the appeal of having the drone pilot in control of the drone and making those decisions, but I don't think it works in the real world anymore. We need to do more. So we also believe that all manufacturers of capable drone technology should voluntarily install geofencing and remote identification. This is not about regulation or mandates. Those may come at some point. This is about being proactive about safety and doing it sooner. But our partners in government also need to step up. They need to focus on the policies and solutions that will make the greatest difference now. I'm not the first to say this, but we strongly believe it's true. Governments must require remote identification. Security agencies need to be able to identify and track airborne drones as well as their pilots before they will allow many other expanded uses for drones. But the FAA's schedule for enacting remote ID seems to be slipping. The FAA does have a lot on its plate right now, no question, but remote ID rulemaking needs to speed up, not slow down. This is true around the world, not just in the US, and it's actually an area where we in the United States need to set an example and move forward. Governments must also require a user-friendly knowledge test for new drone pilots. Now, this may seem counterintuitive for a drone company to call on government to require prospective customers to take a test. We know we're going to lose customers, hopefully just a few, but there always will be people who just don't want to spend time taking a test or dealing with a government website. But it's important. We've already imposed that requirement in several countries with our knowledge quiz because it's so important for new drone pilots to know the rules. Everyone, not just DJI customers, should have to meet that standard. It's just the right thing to do. Governments must also clearly designate the sensitive areas where drones shouldn't fly without special permission, such as prisons, presidential compounds, and military bases, just to name a few. Now, I'm sure plenty of drone pilots will have some strong disagreements with security officials about exactly what areas should be included and how far away. We should have those discussions. DJI will certainly advocate for the least restrictive and most clearly necessary rules for drone pilots, but everyone involved needs certainty about what areas are safe for flight and what's off limits. With that information, people can avoid inadvertently flying in places that raise alarm and concerns or pose actual serious risks. And we, of course, can geofence those areas to help prevent those flights. Now, when a drone does appear to truly present a clear threat to safety, such as at an airport runway or over a crowded stadium, DJI believes local authorities must be allowed to take action. Right now, they don't have legal authority, they don't have the tools, they don't have the training to respond the way that they would to a clear threat on the ground, but they deserve it. Finally, it's important to keep in mind that even the best drone laws and regulations don't mean anything if they're not enforced. Through our work with government agencies, we know that some small number of drone pilots around the world have been caught doing extremely unsafe things, sometimes deliberately, but they never seem to face punishment. And in work that I did at the Drone Advisory Committee 2 years ago, after much debate and even a scientific polling process internally, we identified enforcement as the top priority across the board to help address the roles and responsibilities of all levels of government. Some of you worked with me on that. I see you here, and I thought we were onto something very important. So just last week, starting to see an example of this, a man in California was charged with 2 federal counts for flying his drone over pro football games and dropping flyers at the end of 2017. So that's a great start, but it's a slow one. Local police arrested him at the stadium. He admitted everything to a local TV station, but it still took 1.5 years just to bring federal charges against him. We need to see more deliberate unsafe flights punished, even if just for the deterrent effect. Drone pilots who follow the rules need to see that, so they'll have confidence that the rules are worth following. And the public needs to see that, so they'll understand they can coexist with drones. Now, these 10 steps are a lot, I know that, and they don't come without cost. They will impose burdens on drone pilots, the drone industry, and the governments that oversee them, but we believe they're worth it. DJI's top priority is safety. Not just here this morning at this event, but always. Drones have an admirable safety record. We want to maintain it and even improve it. We want the public to know about that. Even people who will never fly a drone deserve to know why they're a safe addition to the skies and why those tabloid stories about near misses at 14,000 feet are bogus, and what we're doing to make it better and safer into the airspace. This will lead to clear rules and fair expectations. Other companies should join us, step up and do their part. We can solve the concerns people have about drones by studying what they actually do and tackling the problems that are real. We want everyone to have the same situational awareness in their own backyard as Dusty Burge was able to have in that disaster zone. So finally, we want to hear from you. What more can we do? How can we work together on other safety enhancements? We're privileged to be in a position to deploy safety solutions across the vast majority of the market. So help us make the most of that really special opportunity by working with us. Now I'm really delighted to welcome a distinguished panel of aviation safety experts and thought leaders to help us explore these questions and others, led by our public policy manager, David Hansel. Thank you very much.